Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Became Baba Yaga of DXD. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Jerusalem was in the middle of a dark night. Dark clouds in the sky kept the moon and stars from shining as brightly as they could. People had gone home when it got dark, so there was no one around the city's edges. The once bustling city was now quiet, with just a few lights flickering in the wind here and there. But one woman was running as fast as she could along the edges. She was breathing hard, sweating a lot, and yelling out of fear. A man was following her from behind. The creature looked like a big man with wings on his back. He called out to the woman. "Come on, honey. It sounds like fun. I promise you would enjoy it once you get a little taste. Why are you running away? Please. Come here, little kitten," the man said in a spooky voice as he chased after the maiden. The girl yelled back at the being, "Don't come near me. Please don't bother me. Leave me alone, demon." Instead of getting mad at the maiden, the being gave her a big smile. He said, "You will get that kind of play if that's what you want. Run along, dear. Run anywhere. Once you stop running, we'll have the time I promised, and I'll make you beg for it while you're writhing under me." The girl yelled and screamed for help, but she couldn't get in because the city gates were locked. From the look on their faces, it was clear that the guards who were there to watch over the gates were fast asleep and dreaming of women and wine. She couldn't figure out what to do. She ran away from there and tried to find a different way into the city, but her legs gave out. She fell on the road because she tripped. She looked in front of her for a pair of expensive boots. Then she saw that the boots belonged to the devil who had been chasing her. She stood still and couldn't decide what to do. "So you finally decided to stop running away, huh? Well, now that's good. Why don't you come here and play with my tool? We can start right now if we want to. Doesn't that make it more interesting?" asked Satan with a dirty grin on his face. He ran his hand over her face and stuck out his tongue to lick it. The girl in question said her prayers. She asked God for help because she was in trouble. "God, please help me get away from this devil. Please, I beg you." The girl prayed. When the devil saw the girl praying, he said, "Well, now you depend on him, don't you?" No, 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 that girl is bad. It looks like you need to be punished the right way." He tried to hit the girl, but his hand was held back. The devil was angry at the hand that had the nerve to hurt him, so he looked right away for the person who held it. He found a man with a strong grip on his hand. "Let go, human. Do you recognize me? Let go right now," said the devil as he tried to loosen his grip. "Have you no manners, devil? You're trying to hurt a young woman who did nothing wrong. What am I talking about? Of course you don't. Then I guess you should just go on your way," said the young man. "What are you saying? Let go of me right now or you'll suffer," the devil said, but his head was cut off before he could finish. The devil's last thought was, when did he? Because he hadn't even seen the sword being drawn. Naruto wiped his face clean of blood and looked at the maiden. At the same time, she was scared and shocked. Naruto thought, they must still be shocked. He then got down on his knees and gave the girl a hug, saying, "Everything is fine now. You are safe." The maiden hugged him back, then pulled away and said, "Thank you, kind sir, for helping me when no one else did." Naruto looked at her and said, "Don't worry about it. Let's get you back home. After all that going on, I guess you need a good night's sleep." The maiden agreed with Naruto and did what he asked. Naruto has been in this world for 7 years. When the old priest took him in, he taught him about the different cultures and religions in the world. After a long time and a lot of hard work, Naruto finally learned at least enough of the language to get by. When he had time, the priest had taught him Hebrew and Italian. Naruto met the person who was called Giovani de Saint Ammon. He moved from a place called Rome to Jerusalem when he was young, looking for God. During one of his evening walks, the priest found Naruto. After checking on Naruto through a hakim, he took him back to the church and gave him some bandages. The priest took care of Naruto for a while, and when Naruto woke up, he decided to raise him as his own child and teach him how to speak the languages of this world. During the time they were together, the priest changed Naruto's name to Arshimbo so that it would be easier for everyone. Naruto learned a few things about himself during the time he spent here. He no longer had chakra. Well, that's not true. He still had chakra, but not as much as he did before. He could use it, but he couldn't even make a single shadow clone with it. It was hard for him to heal, too, because it seemed like he had lost his ability to heal. He was more normal and normal-looking than he had ever been. Despite that, he did not stop. He learned a lot during the time he was here. After a year of training, he came to this world. This time, he would practice with some light armor that wasn't too heavy to slow him down. He started learning how to use the shield as a weapon and how to ride horses to protect himself. He was very good at riding horses because he was born to do it. He then saw that none of the weapons in this world were the same as the ones he had in his old world. So, in addition to learning language and training, he spent 5 years learning how to make things from the blacksmiths. On his 6th year here, after a lot of practice, he finally learned how to forge something. So he could be as strong as Tsunade. He learned how to control his strength and use his chakra well, just like she did. It took him a lot of practice, broken bones and torn muscles, but after a lot of work, he finally got it. He used the method to forge things, and that's how he made his weapon in the end. After a few fails, he made a katana and some kunai knives. The katana was one of his best swords. Well, chakra metal to be exact, since he had a couple of kunai with him in scrolls during the battle he fought before he came to the world. He called it Will of Fire, to honor the village where he grew up and to remind himself that no matter what, the hope that his friends and family had will never go away. Then he made a 30 centimeters wide shield that was about the size of his hand. It was a kite shield made from a mixture of steel, chakra metal, and another rare metal that he found on one of his rounds by the Jordan. He saw that the metal looked like black sand, and when he melted it down into an ingot, it was heavy but very strong against heat and blows. This made the shield a little bit heavier than it should have been. After he polished it, it looked silver with reddish edges when it caught the light. But Naruto was able to lift it and use it because of how he used chakra. Right now, he was wearing a black linen shirt with a steel mesh under it. He wore regular pajama pants with a cord to tie them up, just like people did in the past. He had on regular boots that were tied with laces. After dropping off the young woman, who thanked him, he went towards the church, where he now lived. He didn't believe in God or like the Christian religion, but he helped out around the church to repay the priest for all the help he had given him. He went into the church and shouted, "Padre, Father, Padre, Father, are you here? I am back." Naruto yelled. "Ah. Where have you been, Arshimbo? Because I couldn't find you in your room, I was worried." "How many times do I have to say, don't yell inside the church? Be respectful and silent," said a voice. The voice belonged to the old priest who had found Naruto, but he looked much older and his voice was cracked from being so old. Though he still has the energy of a child in his eyes. He coughed right after he said what he had to say. Naruto ran to get water for the priest. He used a cup to get some water from a nearby pot. He took the priest's hand and led him to the bed. He said, "Be careful, Padre. You used to be younger than you are now. Here, drink this water." Naruto told Giovani to drink the water slowly, so he did. After he was done, he asked, "So, my son, where were you?" Naruto said in a serious tone, "I'm looking for one of the devils that was causing trouble on the outskirts. Today, a girl was almost a victim." The priest nodded and asked with a smile, "So he led you to this girl so you could save her, is that right?" Naruto smiled back, but he also said, "Padre, as much as I love and respect you, I don't agree with some of the things you say. I don't believe in God, so he didn't help me save this girl. It was because of me. Giovani gave a smile and said, "Ah. But he was the one who brought you to her. It wasn't the God in the sky who brought you to him." Noah. Giovani pointed to Naruto's heart and said, "But here. The God who lives in your heart is the one who led you to her. Your acts of kindness and bravery show that God's will is being done." Naruto was shocked when he looked at Giovani. Then he asked, "But you say, doesn't that go against what the church says?" Giovani smiled at Naruto and said, "It depends on how you look at it, kid. True, saying that God lives in your heart can be seen as blasphemous and arrogant, but it can also be seen as an act of faith. It's clear that God is always in your heart and has your back, even when things are hard. He is both inside and outside of you, always looking out for you. Both are the same thing." The priest and Naruto did not have a fight. He didn't have to agree with what the priest said, but he chose not to argue or think about it. Then Giovani said, "I don't have too many worries, son. However, my only fear is that when I leave this world for the next, I won't know if what I did with my life until the end of it mattered or not." "Only time will tell, Padre," Naruto said with a smile. "From what I've seen you do, though, I do think that what you did was for a cause bigger than you, Padre." "Go, my son," said Giovani as he looked at Naruto. "I need to sleep now." "Yes, I need to sleep," said Giovani, and he did. Naruto smiled as he saw him go to sleep. Then, he said, "Good night, mister." At dawn the next day. "Padre, wake up. Padre. Now is the time for your talks." Naruto yelled at the old man, but the old man didn't answer. When he went inside, he saw that the old man was fast asleep. When Naruto looked again, he saw that the man had died in his sleep. He slept the eternal sleep of the dead with a smile and a sense of peace on his face. Naruto looked at him and said, "Go on, father, free from your worries and cares. Rest in peace." At the moment, Naruto took a plane to get to Rome. He didn't have much stuff with him. He only had a small bag with some books and scrolls in it. He took 2 different flights before he finally got to Rome. He then made plans to take a bus to Vatican City. It took him a few hours, but he got to where he was going in the end. The people in charge of the city were very strict about checking the dress code in the papers. Who could blame them? The city had rules and was thought to be the center of the Catholic Church. The Pope lived in the city. He was one of the most powerful people in the world and in all of Christianity. Naruto didn't cause any trouble and did a good job of following the rules of the city. He had some time to kill before his meeting, so he went on a walking tour of the city. There were a lot of grand and impressive buildings in the city, like St. Peter's Basilica, Castel Sant'Angelo, and the Sistine Chapel, which made the city's architecture very interesting. But Naruto didn't find it interesting. Naruto thought, so much time and money had been wasted on building these big buildings when the money could have been used better to help the poor. Naruto didn't waste much time. He went to the Vatican Gardens right away. He could feel the cool breeze of the evening on his hair. He really liked hearing the whispers of the cold, lively wind as it brushed against his face. He was at peace and taking it easy in nature when he felt a hand cover his eyes. It was a soft-feeling hand that was warm and delicate. Behind his ear, he heard a whisper. "What am I?" Naruto knew it was that person. So he told them right away who it was. He said, well, are we going to play games again, Gabriel?" He could feel the hands go away from his face. He turned around and saw Gabriel being grumpy. Gabriel said, "You are no fun, Naruto. You figured it out right away." Naruto smiled and said, "Well, I don't know anyone else alive who has hands as soft as yours or a voice as beautiful as yours." Gabriel hit Naruto in fun while he was blushing when he heard that. "Idiot. You always say nice things like that to me. Well, I am telling you the truth. When Naruto asked, "Who are you?" their talk took a different turn. So, Gabriel, are we ready to go? Gabriel shook her head and said, "No, there's still time. I thought we might be able to have a good time. Just you and me." Naruto didn't say anything and just kept going. Gabriel was sad because she didn't hear a reply and thought she had been turned down. But then she heard. "So, what are you waiting for? Let's go." Naruto smiled like a fox and said. Gabriel smiled when she heard that, and she ran after Naruto. The two friends spent the rest of the evening touring Vatican City and seeing all of its sights. They had dinner together and had a great time. But it was time for them to get down to business. They went in the direction of the Apostolic Palace. The guards there recognized Gabriel, and one of them let her in while he bowed his head to the seraphim. He was curious about who the other person might have been, but he knew it wasn't his business. Then he led them to one of the doors in silence. With all of the ornaments on it, it looked very grand and beautiful. The guard told him, "Lady Gabriel, His Holiness is waiting for you inside." The two seraphim and the person walked to the door and opened it. They walked into the big room with the big table. They saw an old man with white robes and a white zucchetto in the room. He was wearing a pair of glasses. Another unexpected visitor was standing next to him, which Naruto had not been expecting. But he wasn't really surprised. "Archambault, it's been a while. How are you, old friend?" the young man asked. "I guess better than you. Even though I didn't expect to see you here. May we get to the point?" "Michael?" Naruto asked. Michael, who was now known, smiled and said, "Gladly. Sometime later." "That went better than I expected," Naruto said. "You were pretty sincere in what you asked for," Gabriel told him. HMPH. When people's greed comes into play, being honest doesn't help you at all. Naruto said, "It was just luck that the Pope was more friendly than Pope Eugene III." Gabriel gave her a wry smile, knowing that she couldn't change Naruto's mind. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "First of all, get my stuff out of the vault." Then they went to the archives at the Vatican. Gabriel spoke up for Naruto, and the person in charge talked to Naruto. "Lady Gabriel said that you have something from the past that you'd like to get back. Can you tell me what it is?" asked the bishop who was in charge of keeping records. "No," Naruto said, shaking his head. "It's something I have to go get myself. I'd like to go into the inner vaults, if you don't mind. The number of the registration is 0013. Sol al Tramonto is the passphrase." When the bishop heard this, he was surprised because not many people put their things in the inner vaults. Naruto told them that their registration number was 0013. He looked at the registration number and the password on one of the records. After checking everything out, the bishop took Naruto to the archives and then to a well-guarded, well-hidden area underground, all while carrying a torch. Gabriel chose to leave because she had other things to do. The two people went to the vault with the number 13. After that, the bishop asked, "I'm afraid you need a key to get into this vault and get what's inside." "Unfortunately, we don't have a second key for this vault like we do for the others," as the owner asked. Naruto shook his head and said, "It's all right. It doesn't need a key." He then went to the door and put his hand on it. On the wall of the vault, there was an instant spiderweb of seals that the bishop recognized as Japanese words. He didn't understand why there were Japanese words in this place. The lock on the vault door was broken. The bishop said right away, "I can't look inside any of these vaults because the rules say that only the owner is allowed to do that. So please don't mind me." He said that and then left. Naruto opened the vault's door and went inside. The vault was empty, and only the marble floors were there. Naruto used his torch to light one of the lamps, which made the room brighter. When that lamp was turned on, the whole area got brighter. There was only one chest in the middle of the room. Naruto moved towards the chest and sat down in front of it to pray. Then he opened the chest and looked inside. When he was done, he put the contents into a scroll and sealed it. He shut the door behind him and left the vault, which was now empty. Once the bishop was outside, he asked, "Did you find what you were looking for, sir?" "Yes," Naruto said in response. "Yes, I did." After almost a week, the three groups had decided to meet to talk about making peace. This was different from the non-aggression treaty because it brought about real peace between the different groups that had been at war with each other since the beginning of time. It was decided that the leaders would meet at Kuoh Academy, which was filled with guards from both sides to make sure no one caused trouble while the meeting was going on. Issei was invited to talk about Kokabeel's mutiny with the rest of the peerage because he was part of the Gremory peerage and had a direct connection to it. I think it's safe to say that everyone in the peerage, including the master of the peerage, was pretty tense. They were going to meet the most important people from each group, and they didn't want to mess things up by acting rude. Issei thought, I wonder where Grandpa is now. Then he remembered when his grandfather had talked to them. Flashback. Naruto said to Issei, "Issei, I want you to keep the fact that I am your grandfather from your friends." "Why?" asked Issei, who was confused. "Listen, Issei, it's hard, but trust me on this, okay? Before I left the supernatural world, I made a lot of friends and a lot more enemies. You can't fight these enemies right now. If they find out I have a living, breathing family member, they will do anything to target me through you, and I don't want that. Not for your mother, not for your father, and certainly not for you," said Naruto. "Alright. I will keep a lid on it," said Issei. "Good, now listen carefully. I will be out of the country for several days. Don't ask me where because everything will become clear in time. Now, a lot of different things will happen in the future. It's a risk, but things are starting to look up, so I'd like you to keep quiet and not make things worse, okay? Rias will tell you this, but the three groups have decided to hold a peace conference to talk about the mess in Kokabeel. When I decide to show up, I want you to go with the flow. No matter what happens, don't tell anyone about our connection or act like you know me." "Okay, Gramps," Issei said in a hurry. When Naruto heard this, he smiled because his grandson was finally calling him Gramps. He then said, "Well, looks like we are done here. Let's change the subject, shall we?" Back to the now. Issei and all of the other Gremory peers except for Gasper and Kaneko went to the peace conference. He saw 5 other things in the room besides Searzex and Seraphol. He saw Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, who was the old man who had been calling out to him for drinks. He said it. "Ah, Rias Gremory and the Emperor of the Red Dragon. Let me tell you about the things that live here. I'm sure you already know this, but my name is Azazel, and I lead the dead. Barakiel, my lieutenant and right-hand man, is standing next to me. Valley, who is the White Dragon Emperor, is the other person." Issei noticed that Akano gripped her hands tightly when she heard the name of Azazel's right-hand man. He did not look deep into it. Then Azazel went on. "Well, the leader of the angels, the Seraphim Michael, is to my right, and next to him is another leader of heaven, Gabriel. Hello, it's great to meet you," Michael said, to which Rias replied. "I'm glad to meet you, Lord Michael. You, too, Lady Gabriel, are in the same boat." Gabriel smiled and said, "Oh, Lady Rias, Red Dragon Emperor, it's my pleasure." Issei was told to stay quiet unless he had to say something. He just bent down in front of the Seraphim and said, "It's a privilege to meet you, Lady Gabriel, Lord Michael." Then Azazel said, "All right, now that we've met each other, can we get to the point?" Michael said, "Wait a moment, Azazel. We have someone else who needs to be there. I think he's going to be late." Azazel frowned, but he smiled, so he finally decides to show himself, huh? Now things are much more interesting than they were before. While this was going on, Searsex and Seraphol looked surprised and wondered who the other person was. When the door opened, they saw it. "I'm sorry I'm late, but a black cat got in my way and I had to take the long way to school," the person who walked into the room said. It was Naruto, but he wasn't dressed like himself. Instead, he had on black and white robes with a red cross in the middle. He also wore a black overcoat with the same symbol and a hood. His hands were covered with metal-studded black leather gloves, and a red and white sheathed katana hung from his waist. He had a metal plate on his right shoulder, and underneath his robes and around his waist was a metal mesh. He wore some leg guards and simple black boots. When Azazel saw him, he said, "HMPH. You were always late." Naruto smiled and said, "And you're still the horny jerk I knew you to be back in the day." "Still, old friend, how are you?" "No thanks to you, I'm fine," said Azazel. Searsex finally spoke up, saying, "Hello, my name is Searsex Lucifer, but I used to be Searsex Gremory. I think this is the first time we've met, so could you tell me who I'm talking to?" Naruto looked at him and said, "Yes, of course. Let me reintroduce myself. I go by the name Archambault." Archambault de Saint-Amand was a founding member of the Knights of Solomon's Temple. He used to be their spymaster and Grand Inquisitor. "At your disposal?" Issei asked, "Knights of Solomon's Temple?" With a confused look on his face. Rias and the other devils were thinking the same thing because they didn't know the name. Except for Searsex and Seraphol, whose eyes grew wide when they heard the group's name. This showed that they knew who they were. Michael said, "It was a group of knights started by some powerful people in the Holy Land in the 1100s. People who swore to protect pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land were among them. During the day, they kept the pilgrims safe from bandits and highwaymen. At night, they kept them safe from the terrors of the devils. With the help of the church, they kept supernatural order in the Holy Land. They were a well-known group that led to modern conspiracy theories and many other tales that have been told for centuries. I think you may know them by a different name, though. Called them A. The Knights Templar. Jerusalem 1118 AD. Giovani has been dead for a year. 1 year has passed since Naruto left the church in the care of a new priest who took Giovanni's place. Giovani was able to put some money aside for Naruto, which was a good thing. Naruto got a coin purse and a letter from Giovani that was written to him. Giovani wrote, "My dear Archambault, I know that the time we spent together was short. But that was the time in my life when I felt most alive. I've never met my dad. I grew up with my mother, who was a courtesan, in a poor part of Rome. I was just a fool. By the time I was in high school, my mother was old and sick. We didn't have any of the money she made when she was healthy. So I started stealing. With the money I stole, I was able to save my mother, but it didn't matter because God had other plans. A carriage ran over my mother, killing her. It was the first time I'd ever felt real sadness. I went from being a simple thief to being a killer. I killed the nobleman who had killed my mother. In the end, though, I only felt empty. I began to think about my life. What was I up to? What did I really have to show for my life? I met God when I was looking for the truth. I felt a purpose. A calling from above. I went to Jerusalem to find answers to the kinds of questions that everyone has. I spent 10 years looking for answers in this church. But I didn't get the answers. Even on my deathbed, I still think about what they might be. What do I have to show for it? You came into my life at that time. You gave me a reason to live. You made me happy in a way I didn't know was possible. During the years I spent with you, I really felt like I had accomplished something. Made something or someone happen. Even though we don't share a single drop of blood, when I see you, the only word that comes to mind is son. I'm glad you're that son for me. I'm so glad you came into my life. But every good story must come to an end. So, son, go do what you think is right. The only thing I'm sorry about is not having anything to give you. In the service of God, this coin purse is the only money I've ever saved. I either spent or gave away everything I stole or robbed. Know that I will always be with you. All of them are. Oh, don't act so shocked. I can tell when someone misses his family by how he looks. You might not have told me the truth, but I don't need to know everything about your life. Like I said before. Onward. Make some new friends and start over. Don't let your past keep you from moving forward. So go. Try to live well. We will see each other again. I'm sure of this. Sincerely. Giovani de Saint Amand. In the end, Naruto had already started to cry. He was thinking, that old man. He was. He always knew, but he never asked. It was true that Naruto had wanted to see his family again for a long time. It was the only life he had ever known, and for anyone to be able to leave everything they knew and stay sane was a huge and admirable feat. Naruto was thinking. If not for me, then for the old man. He believed I would live a good life. I should try not to let him down. Then Naruto took the old man's last name, Archambault de Saint Amand, and moved to Jerusalem. He lived off of the gold coins the priest gave him until he started doing jobs for the people and made more money. He got hired by the people of Jerusalem to protect them from devils and other supernatural beings that hurt them. At first, Naruto made so much money that he decided to become a free knight. He helped the poor parts of the city by giving them bread or helping the people free of charge get rid of monsters in and around the city. People in the city liked what Naruto did so much that they called him the guardian knight of the city. Even the most powerful people in the city knew about this honor. A lot of nobles had tried to hire him as their own knight or even try to get him to marry their daughters. But Naruto turned them all down and told them that he liked being free. He usually patrolled the area at night. It was on one of these nights that he met two people who changed his whole life. He saw 12 devils attack a group of knights who were riding horses. All of them were strong, with power equal to that of mid-class devils. The mid-high class devil was the strongest of them all. Naruto took out his sword and ran into the middle of the fight. His steps were quiet, and he quickly cut off the head of one of the devils to kill him. Be careful with this one. One of the devils said, he is much stronger than the others. And then attacked Naruto. Naruto put on his kite shield right away and stopped the attack of the devil. He then hit the devil with the shield. This hit caught the devil by surprise and threw him off balance. Naruto used this chance to kill the devil by plunging his sword into his heart. He then threw the devil to the ground with a kick. He could feel that another devil was coming at him. When Naruto saw the attack coming, he quickly put up his shield to block it. The devil, who also had a sword, hit him with it. Naruto dodged the attack and tried to cut the devil with his sword, but his opponent blocked it. Naruto got closer and gave the devil a spinning kick to the neck, breaking the devil's neck and leaving him headless. Then he saw that one of the knights with only a sword was for a moment locked in a blade lock. He saw that the devil was getting stronger and getting closer to the knight. Naruto hit the devil's legs with his shield. The shield caught the devil by surprise, and he fell down and lost his footing. The man took advantage of this and deflected the sword, causing the man to fall down on all fours. Then he used his own sword to stab the devil in the neck, killing it. The knight then pulled his sword out of the man's neck, letting the body fall. The man then looked at Naruto and bowed in a short, stiff way. Naruto did the same thing and stopped another devil's attack. One of the devils was upset by what was happening and yelled, "Damn it! Retreat! We can't do magic here because it would wake up the angels. Next time, human, we will get you. We will get back at them." The devil said this, and he yelled at Naruto as loud as he could. As the knights cheered for their victory, the 7 or so remaining devils left the area. The whole group was happy when the leader held up his hand and said, "Silence." By then, all of the soldiers had stopped talking. It seemed like the man was in charge. In fact, Naruto knew that he was the person he had helped. Then the man said, "You helped us win against the demons when we were in trouble, friend. I'm thankful for that. Please, could you tell me who helped us?" Naruto smiled and said, "It makes sense for me to help someone who needs it. There's no need to be thankful.
I go by the name Archambaud.
Archambaud de Saint-Amand. It's nice to meet you. My name is André de Montbard. This is," said André, but the man in question cut him off. "I can say a lot about myself, André. It's a pleasure to meet you, Master Archambaud. My name is Hugh. Hugh de Payens of Troyes." That's when Naruto met Hugh de Payens for the first time. The person who became the first Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Present. Everyone was pretty shocked when they found out who it was. The first person to ask the question was Rias. "Hold up. I thought the Knights Templar only existed during the Crusades. Nobody has said anything about them being devil hunters. What's going on?" Azazel smiled at her as he looked at her. He then looked at Circex, who said with a sigh, "Your lack of manners aside, my dear sister, the answer to your question is yes, they were in the Crusades, and they are also devil hunters. It's part of what they have to do." Asia asked, "Duty?" Seraphal replied, "The Knights Templar were started by 9 men who wanted to protect pilgrims going to the Holy Land. Lord Michael said that their main goal and duty was to protect those who come to the Holy Land to seek God, and get rid of all threats. No matter if it's on the normal or supernatural side. During the Great War, they were the Church's frontline troops. They killed a lot of high-class and ultimate-class devils, which hurt us a lot. Even Lucifer himself was impressed with them." Rias was confused and asked, "Wait. Why don't we learn about this if they were in the First World War? If they were that important, we must know about their group, right?" Circex sighed and said, "It's a tricky situation, Rias. Several things happened after the Great War that made the group less powerful than it had been before. They were officially dissolved in the 1300s, long before you were born, so it's not important to talk about them now. Some people say they still exist in secret, but they are not as strong as they used to be. But this is not the only reason why they are not written down in our archives." Rias seemed interested in the second part of what her brother had to say. This time, though, it was Seraphal who said, "Well, let's just say that some devils were too proud and too angry at the group because they were the only group of humans who killed thousands of our kind. So, when the group broke up, some of the older devils didn't even want to talk about it. Their names were taken out of the history books." Rias finally got what was going on. She knew that the older devils were quiet and cared only about themselves. Michael was next to talk. He said, "Well, history lessons aside, I think we're here to talk about something else. I asked Archambaud to be here as a mediator for the meeting between the two groups, even though he has another idea. He was involved in this incident." All of them looked at Rias, who took her lead and started telling the others what had happened. She talked about the meeting with the exorcists from the church and how the rogue exorcist Fried Cezelin and Valpyr Galeli had been working for Kokabeel to get the holy swords. Then she told them about the fight they had with the fallen Kadri. Kokabeel attacked us after he put up a strong wall that cut us off from the rest of the world and made it impossible for us to talk to my brother or anyone else. Then Uzumaki sensei. But Archambaud sensei didn't show up, said Rias. Rias hadn't told Circex this piece of information in her earlier report, so Cirzex's eyes got big. He had been quiet the whole time. Circex gave Rias a confused look, but Rias didn't care and kept going. Archambaud-san showed up in the middle of the fight. He was pretending to be Naruto Uzumaki, and for the past 7 years, he has been our history teacher at Kuoh Academy. He didn't want to mess with us or the supernatural. At first, he acted like he didn't know about the supernatural. But that changed when he saved Issei Hyodo from dying near the end of our battle with Kokabeel. He quickly showed who he was and easily killed Kokabeel. He left after I told him I wouldn't tell anyone about his appearance. He told me I could do it after this week is over. Please don't blame your little sister Lucifer-sama, Naruto said next. I wanted to leave the city before anyone who knew who I was found out. Things have changed since then, though, and I now have new goals to reach. Azazel laughed and said, well, that was a nice surprise. I didn't think you'd be there. But how in the hell did you get inside the barrier without anyone noticing? Naruto shook his head like he didn't know what was going on. Searzex, who had been quiet the whole time, bowed his head to Naruto and said, thank you, Arshimbo-san. Whether you did it on purpose or by accident, what you did saved my sister and the rest of her peers. I'm grateful to you for that. Naruto shook his head and told Lucifer, your thanks aren't necessary. Your sister has already paid her debt in full by keeping her word. Searzex stopped talking and nodded. The talk went on until all three people came to an agreement. But Naruto spoke with creased brows about halfway through the meeting. I'm afraid we have some guests we don't want. Before they realized that time had stopped around them, they all looked at him. Naruto looked at the situation calmly and said, it looks like someone was able to stop time. This person uses the forbidden Belor view. Rias then said, the person who has the sacred equipment is a peer of mine. But why? Then Naruto said, there's no time to talk. Seems we are under attack. Then a spell with flames was cast near the window. The leaders dodged the attack and looked outside, where they saw a group of magicians attacking their people. The magicians were dressed in robes and had hoods over their faces. All of these magicians, though, wore the same symbol on their robes. Azazel, who saw them, knew what it was. Chaos Brigade. Naruto was the one to ask, so, Azazel, who are these people? Azazel said, they are a group of terrorists who come from different groups. They are a hard-to-find group that I looked into, but I couldn't find anything. Well, I don't think they want the three groups to get along right now. After that, Rias said, brother, there is a good chance that these terrorists have taken Gasper. We have to get him out of there to get rid of the effects of the sacred gear. Searzex gave them a nod and told them, okay, you can do it. Bring along 2 more people. The rest of them can help us in the next battle. Rias bowed and picked up both Issei and Akeno. Then, with a calm smile, Naruto asked, well, shall we go greet our guests? Azazel smiled and said, we will. But leave something for us this time, okay? Naruto took off his hood and pulled up his cloth mask so that only his eyes were visible. Then, he told Azazel. Who can say? If you move quickly enough, you might. Then, Naruto was gone in a burst of leaves. Then he showed up again in front of the battlefield. He moved slowly towards the mages, drawing their attention to himself. He sped up slowly at first, but then he ran towards them. When the mages saw him, they cast many spells at him. All of them missed Naruto. He jumped up quickly and cut off the head of the first magician. A knight came from the front to attack Naruto. Foolish. Naruto took a sidestep and grabbed the hand of the knight. Then he threw the knight into a group of wizards who were casting spells at him. They got close to the knight at just the right time for their spells to work. Because of this, their own ranks blew up. Naruto moved quickly forward, blocking attacks from the group's magicians and close combat soldiers. He cut through all of them, making sure to hit all of their most important parts. He moved quickly and smoothly through the lines without stopping or making a fuss. He saw more mages shooting spells at him from a higher rank. This time, Naruto used his shield to block the spells, and while holding the shield, he charged forward. The Magi didn't think that their attacks wouldn't hurt him at all. They tried to get away from him, but they couldn't because something was stuck in their throats. As soon as Naruto stopped the spells, he threw his kunai knives. Then he went to the next level. But this time, he got himself into a bit of a jam. Ha ha ha, foolish human. What will you do now that everyone is around you? Kill the bastard! Yelled one of the robed people, and everyone started chanting spells at him as the knights moved in. Naruto didn't say anything, but he did bend down a bit. The ground broke up beneath him. The leaders of the other groups were interested in what was going on. When Serafal saw that Naruto was in trouble, he said, "We need to help him. He has put himself in a tight spot." "Just watch Lady Leviathan," Azazel said. "We know him better than you do." Serafal said, "He's going to end up killing himself. He doesn't have time to use magic, and there are more of them than him by 150. Each of those signatures is about the same level as a high-class devil, and the magic they cast is strong enough to kill even an ultimate-class devil like Graphia. He's strong, but not strong enough to avoid getting hurt." She could only tell that Naruto used a small amount of magic. He didn't look like he was much stronger than a low ultimate-class devil. Michael laughed and said, "Trust us, Lady Leviathan, he is a lot stronger than he looks. Just look." Serafal's jaw dropped when he saw how much faith these people had in the human. She thought, well, he's just a person. How could he be so strong? Serafal was amazed to see Naruto jump so high into the air that he went over 50 meters and dodged spells that were cast at him from the ground. Then, he threw kunai knives and shuriken at the people who were attacking him. Some of them were able to avoid the kunai knives and shuriken that were being thrown at them, but others were hit in the vital organs and died. The leader, who was shocked by what Naruto did, said, "What are you waiting for? Get him." When someone said the word, all of the magicians cast different spells at Naruto. But Naruto stopped all of them with his shield, which was facing down. None of them were able to stop him from falling. He kept falling until he reached 20 meters, at which point he put his sword away and put his shield to the side. Then he closed his hand into a fist and hit the ground hard. Devastation. A hole opened up in the ground below him. During the impact, everything around them blew up, and the land under a 100-meter wide circle was blown into a crater. In the attack, all of the attackers were killed by being blown up. Naruto didn't say anything, and he kept walking. He pulled out his sword again and moved through the crowd again. More than half of those who attacked either couldn't fight or were killed. When Sirzex looked at this, they were very impressed. He said, "What a terrible thing. He killed more than 200 people in less than 2 minutes without even getting hot. Even worse, he didn't use any magic. I think they only have a few normal weapons and some magic that makes their bodies stronger. Even I am not that good at my job." Serafal could do nothing but nod her head. When Azazel laughed, he said, "Ha ha 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 ha. It looks like we don't need to help this time, either." "Once again? So you fought with him the last time?" Serafal asked. Azazel nodded and said, "Oh yes. It happened during World War I. In particular, the Battle of High Haven." "Wait. He was at High Haven?" asked Serafal, who was shocked. Younger people who were there couldn't understand what was being said and asked a question. Kiba asked him more specifically, "What is the High Haven battle?" Serafal said, "High Haven was a place in the territory of the fallen angels. As you know, the war between angels and devils had started to affect the fallen angels as well, so the grasslands of High Haven became a battleground for all three armies. During the Great War, this was a major battle. The devils wanted to take over High Haven because it was a strategic location near heaven. So, the demons attacked while the fallen fought back. In the meantime, God made a short-term deal with the fallen angels to protect the area. The Knight Templars also fought in the Great War for the first time. But, getting back to my original question, wasn't our friend on the front lines? How does he still have a pulse? He's a person, right?" Azazel said, "Yes, he is human. I don't know how he's still alive. I might have to ask him later. But yes, to answer your question. He was right up front. Even now, it's clear that he was hard to get along with back then. As Azazel thought about the past, he said, "You see, the thing about our friend is that even though he has few resources, he uses them well. The techniques he uses take years of practice and precision, but in the end, the results are much better than the work he puts in. He never moves or attacks in a way that wastes time." So, when he was at the top of his game, even though he only had the reserves of a mid-ultimate class devil, he could fight mid-Satan class devils on an even playing field. Even the Satans in the room were shocked when they heard these words. They didn't know that such a thing was still going on. Azazel said, "I'm surprised, though, that you don't know him as Lord Lucifer. I heard that when you were younger, you liked the Knights Templar a lot. He's the main reason why the devils hate the Templars so much, after all." Sirzex looked like he didn't understand what was going on. Azazel said, "Don't you know him by his clothes and appearance? Doesn't he remind you of someone? I'm surprised you don't remember who made my brother Lucifer so angry that he went crazy." Sirzex then looked closely at Naruto with a surprised face and thought, "Blue eyes, black robes, uses a sword and shield. Impossible. He ought to have died." Sirzex said, "The first Lucifer himself made sure he was." Azazel said, "Apparently not." Seraphal, who didn't know much about the Templars or the Great War, asked Sirzex, "What's going on here? Do you recognize him?" Sirzex nodded his head. "Well, almost every devil in the world knows him," Azazel said. "Even if the Templars were taken out of history, some stories about them are still told in the Devil Society. Devil parents always scare their kids when they go out at night by saying his name, don't they?" Then Sirzex started to say something. "Silent like the wind he rides. Within the cold and darkness he resides. Dressed in black robes as dark as the night skies. The only thing you may find on him is his haunting blue eyes. Run like the wind whenever you see him, eh?" He gave a pause and looked at Naruto before he continued. This time with a grim facial expression. "Eh? For the blue-eyed reaper will tear you limb from limb."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.